Hi friends, this video is going to be longer than my regular videos because I need more time to cover this. Please still watch the whole video though. As a lot of you probably know, I'm bisexual. I've been openly bisexual on the internet for quite a few years now. What some of you might not know is that I found a lot of clarity and strength in my identity through reading the Bisexual Manifesto of 1990. This text was originally published in the literary, journalistic, and topical magazine Anything That Moves, Beyond the Myths of Bisexuality, which was published by the San Francisco Bay Area Bisexual Network. Even though the Bisexual Manifesto was published 30 years ago, I still think it is incredibly relevant to conversations surrounding bisexuality today. Before we examine the text itself though, I thought it would be helpful to define some terms that will come up in the manifesto and in our conversations about it. You'll most likely be familiar with some of these terms, but I still think it is helpful to know how I will be using them in this video. Let's start with gender. In the context of the individual self, gender is the state of being a man, a woman, both, neither, somewhere in between, or something entirely different. In the context of society, gender is a system of classification rooted in cultural ideas about masculinity and femininity. That's because our culture largely views gender as a binary system. A binary system is something made up of two opposing parts. The rigid way that society divides gender into men and women is one example of a binary system. However, our main focus today will be the binary system of bisexuality and monosexuality. Bisexuality is an attraction to two or more genders. Monosexuality is an attraction to a single gender. You're probably familiar with some examples of monosexuality, such as heterosexuality, which is the attraction to the other binary gender. You're probably also familiar with homosexuality, which is the attraction to the same or similar genders to your own. Heterosexuality and homosexuality often form the basis of a binary system of sexuality in our culture. We know this binary isn't an accurate depiction of human sexuality because it leaves out bisexuality. This false binary system is also used to promote heterosexist ideology. Heterosexism is a discrimination or prejudice against homosexuality and bisexuality based on the assumption that heterosexuality is the normal sexual orientation. Now that we're all on the same page with the terms I'll be using in this video, let's read the Bisexual Manifesto. It is really short, so I'm actually going to read the whole thing for context, and then we'll talk about the big ideas it presents about bisexuality. Ready? Let's go. We are tired of being analyzed, defined, presented by people other than ourselves, or worse yet, not considered at all. We are frustrated by the imposed isolation and invisibility that comes from being told or expected to choose either a homosexual or heterosexual identity. Monosexuality is a heterosexist dictate used to oppress homosexuals and to negate the validity of bisexuality. Bisexuality is a whole, fluid identity. Do not assume bisexuality is binary or duogamous in nature, that we have two sides, or that we must be involved simultaneously with both genders to be fulfilled human beings. In fact, don't assume that there are only two genders. Do not mistake our fluidity for confusion, irresponsibility, or an inability to commit. Do not equate promiscuity, infidelity, or unsafe sexual behavior with bisexuality. Those are human traits that cross all sexual orientations. Nothing should be assumed about anyone's sexuality, including your own. We are anchored by those who refuse to accept our existence, our issues, our contributions, our alliances, our voice. It is time for the bisexual voice to be heard. Like I said, it's short. It's also dense, so let's start going through the ideas presented in the manifesto. We are tired of being analyzed, defined, and represented by people other than ourselves. This opening makes it clear immediately that this manifesto about bisexuality is actually written by bisexual people. It also makes it clear that this was written partially out of frustration because so often non-bisexual people will speak over bisexuals to define bisexuality and to label our community. Let me assure you that we can speak for ourselves. We don't need straight people or gay people to speak for us or to be a voice for the voiceless or whatever. We have voices. And if you're a bi-ally, we don't need you to speak for us, we need you to pass us the mic. Moving on, or worse yet, not considered at all. This is part of the same sentence as the opening, but I feel like it is a completely different point. Bisexuals represent more than 50% of the LGBTQ+ population, but funders for LGBTQ issues report that the total funding awarded by foundations for research on the LGBTQ community in the United States to bi-specific studies make up less than 1% of the funds distributed over the past several years, every year. Bi erasure was and continues to be a real problem that harms the bi community. It separates us from the larger LGBTQ+ community and stops our needs from being met because our specific issues aren't even considered. In 1990, we were just trying to get a seat at the table. Now it feels like we're at the table, but nobody cares what we have to say. Next, we have the idea that we are frustrated by the imposed isolation and invisibility that come from being told or expected to choose either a homosexual or heterosexual identity. Our identity as bisexuals historically have gone unacknowledged, and that makes it difficult to form a community. Obviously, the internet has helped a lot with this, but our wider society can still isolate and harm us. The narrative that bisexual people aren't real and our lived experiences aren't valid still persists. Messages to pick a side, to choose gay or straight continue to this day. I've personally received some this year, and they're still harmful. I know they harmed me when I was beginning to experience romantic attraction. Sometimes I thought that my attraction to women wasn't real because I was attracted to men, and had been told that the binary of monosexuality were my only options. Sometimes I thought that my attraction to women was real, and that it meant that I was broken. I have never been broken. I just lived in a community that at best actively ignored bisexuality, and at worst actively sought to invalidate any form of same-sex interaction, including bisexuality. Both of those things harmed me. I think our next point is one of the most important parts of this manifesto. It is the only paragraph that contains just one sentence. It is that monosexuality is a heterosexist dictate used to oppress homosexuals and to negate the validity of bisexuality. I really do believe this is such an important point because it calls out the larger system within the society that we all live in. The idea that everyone can and should only be attracted to the opposite gender is the basis of a system that does not value me, but still views my bisexuality as a threat. There is a story we tell in society, a narrative built within this system of power meant to negate my identity and lived experiences, because my attraction to the same gender and my attraction to multiple genders undermines the core belief that attraction to a single gender, and importantly the opposite binary gender, is correct. My bisexuality is radical. My bisexuality cannot exist in a heterosexist dictate because I am living proof that attraction to more than one gender exists and is valid. Furthermore, we return to the text to read bisexuality is a whole, fluid identity. It's a whole thing. It exists outside of the false binary of heterosexuality and homosexuality, but that does not mean it is half straight and half gay. Bisexuality is its own thing. Bisexuals are like mermaids. Some people like to think of mermaids as half fish and half human, but that's not true. Mermaids are an entirely different species. They are this whole other thing that we've simplified into terms we understand, but that doesn't negate them being their own thing. I am bisexual. I am whole. My sexuality is not built on borrowed parts from other sexualities, but it's its own thing, all on its own. And do not assume that bisexuality is binary or duogamous in nature, that we have two sides, because on the multiple choice test of human attraction, bisexuality isn't A, B, or C, it's all of the above, or some of the above. We contain multitudes. There's also the idea that still prevails that we must be involved simultaneously with both genders to be fulfilled human beings. And I think this acts as a rebuttal to the myth that bisexuals are greedy or incapable of being in monogamous relationships. Some bisexuals are in monogamous relationships. Some are in polyamorous relationships. Some are single. Either way, we're all still bisexual because we aren't defined by our relationship status. My relationship is perceived as heterosexual 99% of the time. But my identity is not defined by how I am perceived. It is defined by me. The manifesto continues with, in fact, don't assume that there are only two genders. This is important to me. This directly combats the idea that bisexuality is trans-exclusionary or that it inherently excludes non-binary people. Bisexuality is all about breaking binary systems. It's just focused on the system of monosexuality. And as a bisexual, non-binary person, let me assure you that I belong in this community and I'm not going anywhere. Moreover, do not mistake our fluidity for confusion, irresponsibility, or inability to commit. I think this is meant to argue against the idea that bisexuality is a phase. It's not. I know who I am. I've always been bisexual. I am in a monogamous relationship because I committed to a person, not because I committed to an entire gender. In the same vein, we have do not equate promiscuity, infidelity, or unsafe sexual behavior with bisexuality. Those are human traits that cross all sexual orientations. Trust me, I have met plenty of people who are promiscuous. I've met heterosexual people who have cheated on their partners. And I know plenty of people who do not practice safe sex, either out of ignorance for what constitutes safe sex practices, or sheer overconfidence that nothing bad could ever happen to them. Basically what I'm saying is I went to college, I met a lot of people, and I watched a lot of drama go down as I tried to finish writing yet another essay in the computer lab during finals week when everyone was breaking up for some reason. Plus, I'm a big believer in not ascribing to human traits, specifically traits viewed as negative, as only existing within a certain subset of the population. Specifically, if that subset of the population is a minority group, it logically makes no sense to do that, but also, that's how bigotry starts. We do not need to engage with this destructive behavior. We simply do not need to do that at all. Continuing, the authors of the original text try to get all of their readers to have an existential crisis by writing, "Nothing should be assumed about anyone's sexuality, including your own." I think that even though hearing this can be stressful, I also found it relatable. I thought I was straight for a really long time because I was assigned female at birth and experienced attraction to men. I was wrong. I've been wrong about a lot of things in my life. Engaging in self-discovery helped me be wrong less often, at least when it comes to myself. Finally, we are angered by those who refuse to accept our existence, our issues, our contributions, our alliances, our voice. It is time for the bisexual voice to be heard. Honestly, it is so exhausting that so much of this manifesto is still relevant 30 years later. Biphobia and bi-erasure sucks. It's depressing that our community has been dealing with the same problems for so long. And I do think things have overall gotten better, but that doesn't mean they're good. I think we need to do more to support the bi community, and I'm hoping to use my platform to do just that. I want to be a voice for good in this community. So more bisexual content will be coming. Let me know in the comments what you want me to talk about. And thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.